Steve Merrill back here breaking down one of your January 1st major bowl games, the Fiesta Bowl at 1 o'clock Eastern on New Year's Day on ESPN National TV. And look, I think Oregon is still one of the best teams in the country. I rank them in my top 4 power ratings, even though they lost the game as over a touchdown favorite against Washington. Still a really talented team. So the question becomes, are they focused for this game? Because there's no question they're by far more than 2 touchdowns better than Liberty, a mid-major program, who, by the way, is 13-0 straight up on the season. If things fall right and one of the teams with the loss, such as, say, Alabama or, Texas ends up winning the national title, if Florida State goes down in their unfocused game's a big dog against Georgia, Liberty could be the only undefeated team remaining in the country, yet not be the national champ. So that's not going to happen because Oregon wins this game. So the question becomes, can they win it by margin and by more than the 16 to 17 point spread? Let's look at some raw numbers, just using some straight mathematical numbers based on strength of schedule, margins of victory, whatnot. You'd get on a starting point Oregon by about 16 in this game. Once again, it's not apples to apples even comparing these teams because Liberty did not play anybody basically at the caliber that Oregon played in the Pac-12, especially down the stretch. Let's look at what the Ducks did. Overall this season, 6 yards per rush, 9.5 yards per pass, almost 8 yards per offensive play, 44 points a game. As I mentioned, I thought they were going to beat Washington. I thought they're going to play their way into the national championship picture. What's interesting, though, is, I said back a month ago, the winner of that Washington-Oregon game was in, the loser was out. Well, obviously, Washington not lose, winning the game, going undefeated, they were in. But what would have happened had Oregon won that game as they were supposed to, and both Washington and Oregon had one loss? Would the committee have maybe left the Pac-12 out since the conference is ending after this week and put Florida State in? We'll never know. It would have been very interesting to see. Liberty, meanwhile, of course, as I mentioned, 13-0 straight up this season, but they played absolutely nobody, an extremely weak schedule strength. In fact, I rate them almost about 12 points weaker than Oregon's strength of schedule. So although Liberty's numbers are very comparable, 6.2 yards per rush, 9.9 yards per pass, once again, it's not apples to apples. They didn't do it against the same type of opponent. Dan Lanning has said Bo Nix will play in this game, which tells me that Oregon is taking it serious. A lot of their other key players are in as well. Not as many opt-outs and transfers as you might expect from a team that had bigger aspirations playing for a national title. So if they come focused, I think they can name their score. And the line is currently anywhere from 16 to 17. So shop around. 17 is obviously a very key number. But at 17 or less, I think the Oregon Ducks are the way to play the Fiesta Bowl on Monday, New Year's Day.
What is up, guys? Drew Martin here with WagerTalk.com talking the Sugar Bowl for the right to play in the national championship, 8:45 Eastern in the Big Easy, New Orleans. It's where the Saints play their home games. It's the Texas Longhorns and the Washington Huskies. As we're talking right now, a couple days before the game, guys, it's 63.5 is the total, -4. That's Texas as the quote-unquote road favorite. Look, guys, I like Washington here. Give me the underdog plus the points. I'm splitting the bet. Plus 165 on the money line as well. Just go back one season. Last year in the Alamo Dome, Washington won over Texas outright as the dog. Think they do it again here. Look, when you go over Texas's schedule, obviously a great season. I mean, going into Tuscaloosa, beating Alabama, winning the Big 12, hats off to them. They deserve it. But when you look at the game, like against Oklahoma, good quarterback in Dylan Gabriel, and what I'm getting at is Michael Penix, kind of like the same dynamics, gave Texas problems. And Houston, another team that kind of gave him a couple punches as well. And Texas, the games where they excelled in a lot of games, but they also played against a lot of backup quarterbacks, a lot of inexperienced passers out there. And sure enough, I think that it's going to kind of catch up to them here against Washington. We get a fast track, controlled climate. We don't have to worry about weather this time of year in New Orleans. Also, talk about going into Tuscaloosa and beating Alabama. Great win. But remember, back early in the season, Alabama had their troubles on offense as well. So I think Texas kind of took advantage of that. And looking on the other side of things, guys, I don't think Washington is getting enough respect here. 13-0. They beat Oregon twice. Remember, they were going off as almost double-digit underdogs in the Pac-12 championship game there in Las Vegas a couple weeks ago. The number one pass offense in the country. Michael Penix at the quarterback position, in my opinion, nothing against Jalen Daniels. He should have won the Heisman Trophy. And their head coach, Kalen DeBoer, the former minor league baseball player, high school football coach, He's worked his way all the way up, grinding along the way. He's now 24-2 at Washington. I think he makes it 25-2 when this is all said and done. Give me the Huskies. That's the Huskies barking as the underdog. I think they punched their ticket into the national championship game.
Hey, everybody, Rob Vino here with a big game breakdown on the Alabama-Michigan Rose Bowl affair that's going to take place New Year's Day, 5 o'clock Eastern time. Game opened with Michigan as a 2-point favorite. Saw an early flood of money right away toward the Alabama side. Total was 45.5 when it opened. Current line, though, Michigan 1.5 and 45. So a little pushback toward the Wolverines here. A couple of key questions here in this game. There's not really, you almost can surface knowledge of this game. You got to dig a little bit to find what may be key advantages for one or the other. But let's just start with the fact that they are both predicated on run and defense this year. Will either ground game work in this contest? Michigan's toughest defensive opponents came in 3 of their final 4 games: Penn State, Ohio State, Iowa. They went run heavy in those games. The philosophy in those games was run the football, control the clock, and Michigan did a great job of both. As far as play calling percentages are concerned, in those 3 games, their toughest of the season, opposition-wise, they ran the ball 119 times and only threw it 59. That's a 67 to 33% split toward the run. And they slowed those games down to a crawl. The average seconds per snap by the Michigan Wolverines offense in those games was 34.9. Those 3 games only had 112, 118, and 120 total plays. Clock grinding, defensive oriented, run oriented. By the way, those 3 teams that Michigan played are number 1, number 12, and number 23 against the rush this year. So Michigan did a pretty good job in those particular affairs. Alabama has a very nice run defense as well, ranked number 29. And you could argue that there's a class difference as far as opposition is concerned. Certainly Alabama played more capable running teams than did any Big Ten team for that matter, any of those 4, any of the other ones. But still, I think that can only be slightly debated here. Those 3 defenses are really, really good, and Michigan's is number 6 in the country. Their running back tandem, Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, it's elite. Their offensive line is elite, even though they lost their star, future NFL guard Zach Zinter, a couple of games back. They seem to do okay against Iowa in that feeling out process, and I think with the extra practices here, maybe the offensive line gels even better. This is not a vintage Alabama rushing attack. They only averaged 4.3 yards per carry all season long, and that includes Jalen Milroe being the threat as he is with his legs. So again, you start comparing these 2 against one another, and you don't see a heck of a lot of difference in the running game, and Michigan should have an advantage here in this particular contest. If I was just to use comp games here, I would say that on Alabama's schedule, Texas and Georgia would be the most comparable opponents to what Michigan is. And in those 2 games, Alabama could only muster up 3.1 a carry and 2.8 per carry. Not real good considering Michigan owns a number 6 rush defense. The QBs obviously are going to be have the center of attention here. Jalen Milroe getting all the talk in. I think, almost everybody I talk to or listen to thinks he's going to be a significant difference maker in this game against this Michigan defense. But I wouldn't sell J.J. McCarthy short here. Not the runner that Milroe is, but boy, his passing accuracy and especially the way Michigan rolls him out has been fantastic. 71% of his passes in those big 3 games down the stretch were completed. So even though they didn't throw it much, he moves the chains. They get first downs. He completes his passes. I think where Jalen Milroe is concerned, 2 things here. We know what he's good at. Excellent open field runner. Excellent deep ball thrower. Michigan probably goes to some type of umbrella defense here to prevent the long ball, and they probably spy Jalen Milroe. We'll see if it works. I think the old adage of Big Ten teams not having the speed to keep up with SEC teams has probably gone by the wayside in this matchup. Michigan has faced the team speed of Ohio State 3 straight years and beat it 3 straight years. So I don't know that Alabama is a faster team than Ohio State. In the end, if I just look again one more time at comparable games, which is I think where you have to go if you're going to separate these 2, for Michigan, the team most comparable to Alabama would be Ohio State. In that game, Michigan against Ohio State controlled the clock, 7-minute time advantage. They did not commit a turnover. So grind the clock, don't commit turnovers, very fundamental stuff. In fact, in the 3 tough games that they played down the stretch, Michigan didn't commit a single turnover. +6 against Iowa, Penn State, and Ohio State. 6-0 turnover difference in their favor. For Alabama, once again, the comp games are Texas and Georgia. The Tide only had 362 and 306 total yards against those 2 teams. It's not that explosive of an Alabama offense, 4th and 31. I know it's neither here nor there now, but they're that close to not even being in this game. I think Michigan's built to beat this style of team, ground and defense. I just think Michigan's better at it than Alabama is. The high-flying offenses of Texas and Washington probably would give Michigan a little more trouble. I think Michigan's the right side here. I'll lay 1.5. Big game breakdown, Michigan -1.5 in the Rose Bowl over Alabama.
What is up, guys? Drew Martin here, wagertalk.com. Talking the Gator Bowl, 12 noon Eastern in Jacksonville, Florida. We get the Clemson Tigers and the Kentucky Wildcats. So, battle of felines here in northern Florida. -5, that's Clemson as the favorite, 45 being the total. I'm on the underdog here, guys. Give me Kentucky. I split the bet, +5 and +170 on the money line. The dogs have been good in bowl season out the gate, guys. The first 17 bowl games, underdogs are 12-5 against the spread. And this time of year, if I like an underdog, I like to split the bet because a lot of times we'll see the underdog win outright. I think this is a chance where it can happen. Couple reasons why. Clemson, motivation-wise, I don't really feel it for them. A team that comes into really every season looking to win the national championship. Dabo Swinney, he had the high recruit quarterback. Didn't really play out all that well offensively. Disappointing year overall for the Tigers. Plus, they're missing a bunch here due to opt-outs, due to transfer portal on the Clemson side of things. So I worry about it motivation-wise heading to the Gator Bowl. And on the other side of things, I think it's a lot better for Kentucky. First off, this team looked like it might be, heading in the wrong direction, but a really good coach in Mark Stoops, in terms of longest tenured head coaches in the SEC. It's Nick Saban, and then next up is Mark Stoops. When you can keep a job in this conference for that long, you're doing something right. He's done a great job in Lexington. Plus, another thought to talk about motivation, how important motivation is in bowl season. When a team's best player, in my opinion, it's Ray Davis here for Kentucky, who's going to be toting the rock on Sundays, declares for the NFL draft and still plays in the bowl game. That is a good sign, guys, because in the locker room, they're saying, hey, one of our best players is going to be playing on Sundays, and he's sticking with us and playing in this bowl game. At least that's the reports right now. We are still a few days before this Gator Bowl kicks off, but I like that kind of mindset in the locker room heading into bowl season. So, hey, overall, guys, we get the SEC versus the ACC. I like that as well. Give me the Kentucky Wildcats +5 and on the money line +70. I think the underdog is barking here with Kentucky to kick us off on Saturday.
All right, guys, let's take a look at the Arizona Bowl, where it will be the final game for Wyoming head coach Craig Bohl, who is retiring. Bohl, of course, spent the last decade in Laramie, and you got to figure his players are going to want to send him out a winner. Obviously, motivation, such a key point of the handicap in bowl season. And if you've got a beloved coach in his final game, my goodness, what more motivation do you need if you're a player on the Wyoming Cowboys? Meanwhile, Toledo, coming off a loss in the MAC championship game, they figure to be far less motivated. Winning the MAC was the Rockets' top priority in 2023, and they failed to get the job done. Simply put, losing to the Miami Redhawks. We had a nice winner on Toledo under its team total in that game. And you look at the bowl, well, bad news for Toledo's offense because their starting quarterback, DeQuan Finn, he has decided to transfer to Baylor. That is a massive blow for head coach Jason Candle. I realize this is only going to be the second time all season that Toledo has been a dog, and they did cover the season opener at Illinois. That was their only loss besides the MAC championship game, and it came on a last-second field goal. But hear me out, guys. Wyoming is a perfect 6-0 straight up as a favorite in 2023, plus they have won the last 5 times as a favorite of 3.5 to 10 points. Last 2 games, the Cowboys offense has put up 84 points, and the defense has held half of their opponents this season under 20 points. Full disclosure, I have Wyoming straight up as the second half of a money line parlay. The first half on Oklahoma State has already cashed. But if you want to lay the points in this one, Toledo and Wyoming, I would not fault you. Wyoming is the right side in this game Saturday afternoon.
Take a look at a game going tonight, I believe. Arizona and Oklahoma. They're playing in San Antonio. Wildcats of Arizona have been bowling since a 38-35 loss to Purdue in 2017. This is a club that's had 5 straight losing seasons after blowing up this year, winning 9-12. The last 7 seasons, Arizona allowed 31 points per game each year. This season, only one opponent, USC, surpassed that 31-point mark. The Wildcats' defensive turnaround has been outstanding, and the offense has been pretty good as well, scoring 101 combined points the last 2 games. Minnesota bounced back from a very rare losing season in Brett Venables' first year to win 10 games this year. The passing attack was again a lead, but the running attack, I was a little bit disappointed. Normally, if you've got a good passing attack, your running attack should be better. It was okay. It wasn't great. The Sooners enter every season with extremely high expectations, with an eye on the national prize. That has been the case the last 4 seasons now, as they've been left off the Final Four stage. This is a team in Oklahoma right now that I think gets a lot of buyers because of their history. I just don't think this is the same Sooners team as we've seen over the last decade or so. So the Sooners, congratulations on a nice rebound year. But Arizona is the team that wants to be here. The game is being played in San Antonio. I've been to San Antonio. I recommend everybody goes there. It's a good place to go for a few days. It's not a week vacation, but a lot of good people, a lot of things to see. And I like the city of San Antonio, and I think Arizona will also. Give me the Wildcats in the game against Oklahoma.
Yeah, let's take a look at a game that's upcoming here today, guys. North Carolina State and Kansas State in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. What a great trophy. I saw an online picture of it that we give away here in this game. It's better than having, I guess, mayonnaise dumped over your head. You can get some Pop-Tarts out of this. I'm going to make this one real simple here. I've made a lot of money this year playing Kansas State overs. The team just comes with a reputation tag of being physical, point of attack, run the football, grind the clock. It's not really that type of KSU team this year. And also it comes with, that, they're great on defense type of persona across the nation, really, and to bettors that walk up to the window to play their games. You take a look at their last 4 games, just to hammer home the point, totals at the final score totals in those games are 77, 58, 84, and 63. And there's a multitude of overs shoved in the Kansas State ledger this season. Here, 48.5, the total, because NC State perceived again, and some of it, created by themselves by not playing good offense for half of the season, maybe a little bit more, but they're perceived as a low scoring, bad offense with a really, really good defense. Statistically, when you look at overall statistics, that's the conclusion you come to. Sometimes you have to pick inside the weeds to find out how a certain matchup might go. I think this one's going to be relatively high scoring here for NC State. It took a while to get used to offensive coordinator Robert Anai's offense. Brennan Armstrong didn't look like the Brennan Armstrong from Virginia for a long time, but as the season progressed and toward the very end, NC State looked like a different offense and a productive offense. They shredded North Carolina. Of course, North Carolina's defense hasn't been that great all season, but that game got over the total rather easily. In this game, because of opt-outs, you'll have a pair of dual threat quarterbacks, Armstrong on the NC State side, Avery Johnson, the tremendous freshman, probably the fastest guy on K-State's team, will quarterback here. They will become a little more run-oriented than they were with Will Howard, because Will Howard's a bit of a more accurate passer. But Avery Johnson, he can strike at any minute, and the offense with him can strike at any minute. We've seen it throughout the season. So this is not necessarily a huge downgrade. I just think that Howard's probably a little sharper in the passing game, and K-State has lost a lot of offensive weapons here. So Johnson won't have a bunch of normal starting targets to throw to in this case. However, I think the defensive absences are where the strengths lie to playing an over in this game for North Carolina State. They're going to be without ACC Defensive Player of the Year, Peyton Wilson, their linebacker, who really was the meshing point between the front seven and the back seven. Kansas State probably can make a little bit of hay running the football without Wilson in there, and they can also use the short to intermediate passing game without Wilson patrolling the middle of the field in pass coverage. So that's a big blow to NC State. And I think their overall statistics will show that they're really good against both run pass. But without him, I think it'll be a little bit different against Kansas State. Kansas State, on the other hand, is without multiple members of their secondary, which was vulnerable to begin with. That K-State secondary was picked on by a lot of teams this season. They did play injured quite a bit of the year, but now they're just depleted. And I think what we'll see out of Armstrong and the Wolfpack passing game here is this offense has now come around to become more cohesive. I think they're going to expose that secondary here. This total is 48.5, which to me in college football, modern day college football, whenever I see a 48.5 and a somewhat competent offensive teams, you have to take a look because it's pretty easy to get to that number. I think both of these teams will score maybe above their team total here tonight, pushing this one into the 55 plus range. Again, Kansas State has kind of been a mechanical play for me where over is concerned. I don't see any reason to back off now. So I'm going to play this NC State, Kansas State game up and over 48.5.
All right, for today's best bet, we're going to take a look at the Sun Bowl, which takes place Friday afternoon. Notre Dame and Oregon State. This is actually the third time these teams are meeting in a bowl, and the second here in El Paso. The first certainly didn't go well for the Fighting Irish. They lost 41-9 and 38-21. That's ancient history, though. That was the Brady Quinn and I believe Jimmy Clausen days, which I'm sure everyone in South Bend would just as soon forget. But if you were thinking about kicking up your feet, watching this game, I got some bad news for you. A lot of opt-outs. A lot of people have transferred. A couple skeleton crews we're going to have on the field here in El Paso. Just really a who's who on offense for both teams that will not be playing. Notre Dame, get this, is going to be without 11 of its top 12 players on offense. That's in terms of snap count. Meanwhile, Oregon State, they're without their top two quarterbacks and star running back. A case I think could be made here, folks, that no bowl has been more adversely affected by the portal and or opt-outs. Furthermore, you got Oregon State, their coaching staff, a real shakeup. Jonathan Smith, he's gone to take the job at Michigan State. His replacement, will be defensive coordinator Trent Bay, but he's not going to be with the team here. You're going to go with an interim Heinsohn, who was the passing game coordinator. Meanwhile, cornerbacks coach Anthony Perkins will be the interim DC. I don't think this staff really cares too much about getting an offense ready. Again, it's a skeleton crew. DJ U's gone. Aiden Childs is gone, who was the backup. So it's going to be third stringer Gulbranson, who started the final 8 games last year. But unlike last season, he will not be able to hand the ball to running back Damian Martinez, who is suspended after getting arrested. So he will not play. No judgment here. We've all made mistakes. But no Damian Martinez for the Beavers and no Sam Hartman for Notre Dame. Top 3 receivers have hit the portal for the Fighting Irish. Running back Audric Estime is opted out as well. Offensive line is in shambles for Notre Dame. Let's not overthink things, guys. Let's play the under in a game where I don't think either side really cares. Points should be few and far between in El Paso Friday afternoon. Under 41.5 is your best bet.
I'm going to take a look at the Iowa-Tennessee game in Orlando for the second time this week. We put out an earlier play on the first half under 17.5, but there's more reason to look for a lower scoring game. And in fact, now I think Iowa's got a little bit of value in this one as Tennessee's quarterback has decided he's not going to play. And they're bringing in a guy who hasn't played anything as of yet, but he does have a lot of talent. One of the top quarterback recruits in the nation for Tennessee, but he will be playing his first game of the season. And this Iowa defense is very good. Not often do you see a bowl game with a total of 35 range, especially when one of those teams had over that amount themselves 5 times this year, and that was the Volunteers. We all know about the Hawkeyes' lack of offense. Over the last 7 games, they've scored a combined 85 points, including being shut out in the Big Ten championship game. But this defense has been amazing, especially when considered a bad field position the offense leaves them in. Only twice all season have they allowed more than 16 points, and that was against 2 top 10 teams, Penn State and Michigan. Tennessee's lit up bad defenses all season long, but they really struggled when stepping up in class, scoring 16 against Florida, 20 against Texas A&M, 20 versus Alabama, 7 versus Missouri, and only 10 against Georgia. Against top 20 opposition, the Volunteers are averaging just 12 points per game. And yes, Iowa is currently ranked number 20th in the country. With a new but talented quarterback for the Volunteers, we can't see this Tennessee team having much offensive success. We gave you the first half under 17.5 earlier. It's now down to minus 120. We also like that, but we also like Iowa plus the points here, because I don't think Tennessee will be able to put up enough points here with a brand new quarterback, even though talented. It's a totally different ball game, especially when I'm going against what could be the best defense you faced all season long. We've got Iowa first half under 17.5 and Iowa in the game plus the 6.5.
Hey, everybody, Rob Vino here. Let's take a look at the best bet for the show. Going to move over to the ReliaQuest Bowl. It's January the 1st, a noontime start in Tampa, Florida. Wisconsin against LSU. LSU opened minus 10.5, total 55. Since been bet down to 10, and a total has gone up to 55.5. Personnel losses. That's where we have to start these things all the time. For LSU, of course, it's Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Jalen Daniels. He's on his way to the NFL. But beyond that, LSU looks pretty much intact for this game. Wisconsin depleted somewhat at the skilled position, starting with their star running back, Braylon Allen, who opted out. Both starting wide receivers hit the transfer portal. One actually already committed to another school. And they did lose their starting center. However, their backup was supposed to be their starting center. Cincinnati injury prevented him from being the starter, so certainly an experienced guy. Want to take a look at Garrett Nussmeier. He'll be the starting quarterback for LSU here. Yes, he's not Jalen Daniels. He does not have the dual threat ability, but boy, he's experienced and he's got weapons. Head coach Brian Kelly confirmed earlier this week that wide receivers Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, both starters for LSU, will play in this game. They had the opportunity to opt out of this. They decided to play in this game. I think that's a good sign for LSU, which features the number 3 pass offense in the nation, number 9 rush offense, and of course, some of that did have to do with Jalen Daniels. Number 1 total offense in the country, 541 yards per game. And of course, number 1 in average yards per play. Team rips off 8.4 each time they snap the football. Again, those numbers accumulated with Jalen Daniels. We do expect some drop off, but Nussmeier, it's not his first rodeo. He certainly is capable of putting up big numbers here in this game. The offenses that Wisconsin has faced this year, I think it's important because they're facing a juggernaut one in this game. They face 0 of the nation's top 30 offenses. The 2 best offenses they faced all season long, Washington State and Ohio State. Ohio State checked in at number 31 as far as total yardage per game is concerned. In those games, Washington State put up 22. Ohio State put up 24. Take a look at some of the other offenses that Wisconsin's played this season. 7 of their 12 games were played against offenses that ranked 110th or worse. This is a different breed they're going up against here. I would think they'll probably have trouble with this LSU team. Considering the fact that Ohio State got 24 and Washington State got 22, I'd look for LSU to get 30 plus in this game. Let's look at the defenses just to clarify the point that LSU has faced. Can they move the ball against really good defenses? Well, they played Alabama, Florida State, and Texas A&M. Those teams ranked 14, 17, and 21 in the nation in total defense. What LSU do? They scored 28, 24, and 42. All those defenses are better than what Wisconsin brings to the table here. So certainly LSU looks to have some success. I think you need to mention here as well that Wisconsin's in their first year of the air raid offense under the direction of offensive coordinator Phil Longo. And they're 26th in the nation as far as seconds per snap is concerned. They go quick. And when you go quick, 3 and outs happen. A lot of possessions happen, more opportunity, more chances to score, more chances for LSU to get the ball. If Wisconsin's successful behind Tanner Mordecai and a skeleton crew at the skill positions, then they'll be successful. But the pace of this game should be quick. In the end, I think it's pretty simple. LSU is a vastly superior offensive team. They're obviously motivated. All you have to do is look at decisions made by Neighbors and Thomas, the two wide receivers, and know that LSU is bringing basically their full complement of players to this game. And Wisconsin's bunch opted out in quite a few position groups. You can tell who's the more motivated team here. I'm sure that that Luke Fickell, the head coach for Wisconsin, will do the best he can to instill some type of focus in his team, but they just don't have the horses in this game. Last year, LSU came to a bowl game against a depleted Big Ten team in Purdue, and Brian Kelly ran up the score 63-7. I don't know why he wouldn't do the same here. His name is mentioned in Michigan talks. Maybe he's the next head coach. Maybe he wants to show Michigan that he can destroy a good Big Ten team. Who knows? But I could see the second straight blowout by LSU in a bowl game here. Like I say, just a superior bunch, even though their defense has some holes in it for sure. They haven't been the greatest on defense, and Wisconsin might score more than the 7 Purdue got last year. But looks like LSU -10 is the way to go in this game. They've run up big numbers on everybody this season. Don't know why they wouldn't here. We're going to play LSU as the best bet, -10 over Wisconsin.